Okay, so when we left last time, we'd just routed out this pickup pocket, and what could potentially have been a disaster has actually turned out really, really nice. There's a little bit of cleaning up work to do, but other than that, I'm very happy with it. When I was doing it, I noticed something and I thought I'll leave it in, but I will not mention it and just see how quickly someone picks up on it. And that is that routing out this pickup pocket, I've actually gone past the centre block. So there are some little voids there where the cutouts are for the little tabs that the pickup screws in through. Now, when I first did it, I thought, that could be a problem because I'm not actually going to be able to screw it in. However, if we look at the pickup, there is quite a distance between the edge of the little tab and the centre of where the screw goes. And I'll get shaky cam on the job and you might just be able to see in there, I've marked with a little punch the centres for those screws so they just catch in the centre block, so we can actually fit the pickup without any problem, and all it'll mean is we'll have little holes going through. I'm going to call those serendipitous auxiliary sound holes. I think that works, doesn't it? But in all seriousness, I don't think it's going to have any kind of impact on the sound or the functioning of the guitar itself. And once the pickup is in, you probably won't be able to see this too well, but you can't see. And what I might actually do is put a little bit of shielding paint into that cavity, and then everything will be black and no one will be any the wiser. Another thing that a couple of people mentioned in the comments was, of all the thousands of yards of blue tape I use every year in this place, I didn't put any over the F-holes when I routed this out, and I really should have done, because you were absolutely 100% correct. I filled the body full of sawdust and it took ages to get out. However, in this episode, I'm going to move on and tackle quite a lot of the little bits and pieces jobs that are left before we can start the finishing process. And I still haven't got all the parts I need, but I think I've got enough information to do the job, so I'm not particularly worried about that. What I need to do is I need to put the controls through here. That's going to be one volume, one tone. I need to put my output on the rim of the body as well. I borrowed an electro socket off another Telecaster so I can get the dimensions that I need to drill that out. Okay, so that's not a problem. I've got a couple of knobs which I can use for demonstration purposes. I don't think I'll use Telecaster knobs on this. I think I'll use something else, but these will give me an idea of where to kind of drill for my controls. And the serendipitous auxiliary sound holes actually give me a very good indicator where my center block is. So I did it on purpose just so I could see that. I know exactly where I can and can't put the pots, which is also very handy. Also, what I need to do is put a round over on the back of the body that is still very square, and there is the issue of the kind of two-tone nature of the back. So I might do a little bit of sanding and just see if I can try a few kind of ways of making that a more uniform colour with the bottom half of the body. But we'll see if we get time to do that after we've done all the other little jobs. So I think first up is I need to bite the bullet and drill a couple of holes in the top. And I'm going to turn this round so I've got a much better view of how this is going to look. I think I'm going to mock this up as much as I can. Just to see how those sit in terms of layout. I was trying to get that central in that section, but I actually think it looks better kind of offset. So I think that looks something very much like. So I'm going to kind of Just mark those. To give me my centre. I think sometimes you can really kind of obsess about little details like that. And I'm not entirely sure it ever makes that much difference. So now I have it on good authority that the holes I need for the pots are 9.5 mil. So I'll go and get a drill and some drill bits and we can get them poked through. So like a dick, I've drilled these 2 holes before I've pressed the record buttons. So I haven't got any footage of that. You've seen me drill holes before, I'm sure. However, I did explain a couple of things while I was doing it to myself because there was no one else to listen. When I glued this top on, I did have a couple of comments from people saying, hold on a minute, you're going a little bit too far, too fast, and you should have drilled the holes while you had the opportunity to back it up before it went onto the body. Because obviously I can't get anything in there to stop it splitting out when I drill through. However, I have a secret weapon in my arsenal, and that is these FAMAG lip and spur drill bits. They are absolutely brilliant. They're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but they are very, very good. And I was pretty confident that if I took my time drilling through with one of these, it would cut a perfect hole without any damage on the back of here. And I can get my little finger into the back of one of them and it is perfect. There is no tear out at all. Can't get to that one, but I'm pretty confident that's the same too. So that's the bit you've missed. It's me drilling a couple of holes and explaining something that I can explain just as well with the holes drilled. Okay, so next up, what I'd like to do is fit the output into the side here. However, we do still have to put a round over on this body. And if I drilled a great big hole in here, there's a chance that the bearing that guides my router bit could disappear into that hole and we'd take a massive chunk out of the back of our guitar, which we don't want to do. So I'm going to put the round over on very quickly now before we do anything else. And I'm not actually that sure what size round over that I want to put on here. So I'm going to start with a small one, and if I'm not happy with it, we can just very simply whip round it again with a slightly bigger one until we get something that we're happy with. And actually, I think we've got there first time. So I'm quite happy with that. It has kind of left a little bit of a lip there though, which actually, you know, that could be a look if I'd gone a little bit deeper and kind of made that look a little bit more deliberate. Maybe that's something we can utilise in a future build, but for this one, I think I'm just going to kind of take a bit of a rough pad and just blend that in. Okay, and now we can actually get that jack socket installed. And what I wanted to do is I thought it would be quite good there, because that's quite an ergonomic position to put it, but there's actually quite a distinct radius to that little bit of the body, and if that's rocking, it means it's never going to really sit flush. But there is a little bit flatter, so I think we'll kind of centre it in that position. It's always going to be a little bit of a trade-off, but I think that'll be okay. So we'll get this in the vise and we can get it marked out and drilled. And fairly straightforward. We're just going to square a line across there. I've already set these calipers up just to find our centre point. Mark that. And you need 2 Forstner bits to fit one of these. The outer lip, which needs to be done first, is 25mm. You only need to go down kind of less than 2mm on that. And then the inner portion is coming in at 21.6, so kind of as close to 22 as I can get it. And that needs to go right the way through into the cavity. Now, the wall on here is only probably about 1/2 inch, so we don't really need to go too mad with this. So I'll just get my drill sorted out and some Forstner bits and we can have a go at that. And as it happens, I've actually got 25 and 22mm bits, so we should be absolutely fine with that. Just going to take this out a bit at a time. That looks to be good. And then just gently right the way through with this smaller one. And this is actually quite a tricky job because these Forstner bits, they work much better in a drill press where you can get a lot of downward pressure on them. But I don't want to force this either, because once I get kind of very close to the inside of here, it'll just break out and leave a really nasty raggy hole in there, which no one will ever see, but I'll know about it and I wouldn't like that. So we're nearly there with it, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm not going to risk it any further with that one. I'm going to take a slightly different approach, and I'm going to use one of these stepped drill bits. This one only goes to 20, so it's going to be a kind of a couple of mil shy of where I'd want it, but I think we're kind of in deep enough already that that's probably not going to make much difference at all. I can always kind of grind it out a bit if I need to. And to finish that off, I've just got a Dremel with a little sanding drum on. And we'll just kind of clean that up until everything fits. That's gone in really nicely now. I'm not going to screw it in yet. I'll save that until after I've done the final sanding, just so I can make sure that I get this in the exact position that I want it, but I'm happy with the way that that's come out. So with that done, I'm going to clear away a little bit of space on the bench, and then we can have a look at the back of the body and see if we can do something about this colour mismatch. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is just get the sander on this and get it a little bit closer to the finish that we want. This bottom half isn't too bad, but the top half, there is quite a little bit of kind of roughness there that we'll need to get out. So I'll start with some 120 grit, get the vacuum on the job so we're not too dusty, and set about making a load of noise. And that's all sanded to 240, and that is really nice. Obviously I've got to do all around the sides and everything else, but for the time being I just want to get a feeling if I can get this something like with a bit of stain perhaps. So I've got some brown mahogany. This is a water-based dye. This is brown mahogany, so in theory should be able to get something like with it, but you don't know. So I'm just going to kind of start adding a bit of that on. If it's not right, we can just kind of sand it back out again to a certain extent. And wet, that doesn't look absolutely spot on. It's better, it's not as light as it was, but I need to see what this dries like. So I'll leave this for a little while, see if it dries up any better. If it does, we can give it another coat. If not, we'll have to think what plan B might be. So this has dried overnight, and you know, sometimes you think you'll just give something a bash and see what it looks like, and it looks rubbish. And other times it actually looks really, really good. That's just had one coat, and I don't think one's enough, but it has definitely kind of evened things out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a kind of a light flick over. This is a 600 pad, so it's not particularly rough, and it's just to kind of flatten down any grain that I might have raised when I added that stain. And I'm going to give that half of the guitar another coat. Now I'm still experimenting with this, which is why I'm not doing anything to like the edge of the body or anything. I just want to see if I can kind of get this to look something like before we actually start the finishing process proper. And again, this is going on quite dark, but I expect it to kind of lighten up significantly once it dries. And my plan is I'm going to give this a second coat, let it dry, and then give the whole thing a coat just to try and even everything out, and hopefully that will look okay. However, that's going to require letting this dry, giving it another coat, letting that dry, and then kind of evaluating whether it's good enough or not. And that is going to take a lot more time than I've got to put this episode together. So I'm going to leave this one here. I think we've tackled quite a lot of the little jobs that are going to need doing. I'm happy with the progress, and we're a few little steps closer to getting some finish on this. So I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we can carry on with this. Until then, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you then. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.